All right, good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. I'm Sergeant Marslack. I'm from the Top 3 Professional Development Committee, and I'm here with your Friday telePD. So today we have the Equal Opportunity Office at Beale Air Force Base here to talk to you about what they do and do a little Q&A. So we have Master Sergeant Maldonado, Technical Sergeant Thomas, and Staff Sergeant Hopwood here today. All right, so without further ado, equal opportunity.
All right, good morning, everybody. We're just going to give you a quick overview on the EO program. So first, our mission is pretty much just to promote an inclusive environment free from any personal, social, or institutional barriers that prevent airmen from rising to their full potential. So we're going to talk about the policies, we're going to talk about categories, talk a little bit about sexual harassment, the complaint process, and other services that the EO office provides. So as far as the policies go, Air Force, DOD, and local policy, they pretty much go hand in hand. There's a zero tolerance for any unlawful discrimination or sexual harassment. It's against Air Force policy for any airman, military, or civilian to intimidate, discriminate against, or threaten airmen based on one of the protected categories. So the protected categories would be for military, they're race, color, religion, national origin, sex to include sexual harassment, sexual orientation, hazing, bullying, and civilians have those categories plus age, disability, reprisal, and genetic information. So we don't only service military members, we service civilians as well. So out of all those categories, sexual harassment is the biggest complaint across the Air Force right now. Sexual harassment could be verbal, nonverbal, or physical. And the two types of sexual harassment in the workplace would be a hostile work environment, which is the most common type of sexual harassment in the workplace, and there's quid pro quo. So quid pro quo is pretty much, it's a this for that. You know, you do this for me, I'll do this for you. So it's usually between a supervisor and subordinate, and it only takes one time to be considered sexual harassment. So an example of this would be, if a supervisor was talking to their airman, they say, hey, I can make sure you get BTZ if you sleep with me. That would be an example of quid pro quo. A hostile work environment doesn't necessarily mean that people are arguing and fighting all the time. It can get to that point, but it's just an uncomfortable environment where people are isolating themselves. And we all know in the military we need to work together as a team. So no one wants to be at work in a hostile work environment where it's uncomfortable. So if this does happen in the workplace for sexual harassment, if someone does come to the EO office or if there's a complaint, it will get referred back to the chain of command to conduct a commander-directed investigation. The commander has to report that notification to the General Court Martial Convening Authority within 72 hours, and that investigation will be completed within 14 days. For the complaint processes, we have the formal process and we have the informal process. So in the informal process, the chain of command is huge in the informal process. But we like to say, and when it comes to complaints, if you have an issue with someone, the first person you'd like to talk to is that person. You want to resolve everything at the lowest level possible. So if you're not comfortable speaking with that individual, then speak to your supervisor and use your chain of command, first sergeants, commanders, so forth and so on. There's also alternative dispute resolution. So it's mediation. There'll be a setup pretty much like this. It's a roundtable discussion. There's a mediator there. There's a third-party neutral. The aggrieved individual is there, and the alleged offender is there. The mediator is there just to help facilitate conversation and get dialogue going. The mediator is not there to resolve the conflict. The two parties are there to resolve the conflict. And the mediator is there just to make sure, everything is peaceful. So if things can't be resolved in the informal process, then there's also the formal process where we would conduct interviews. We would talk to individuals and make face-to-face contact with individuals who have first-hand knowledge of the allegations. We would go through any records, reports, data, PIFs, anything we can, looking for trends, and based on preponderance of evidence, we would determine whether or not unlawful discrimination or sexual harassment has occurred. So from that point, we would compile all our evidence, and we would take all of our all of the evidence, take that case over to legal, and they will do the legal review on it. So they'll either concur or non-concur. If they non-concur, then the commander will be the person that determines whether or not unlawful discrimination or sexual harassment has occurred. So the timeline for a formal military complaint is 20 duty days. So we do the complaint clarification within 9 days. After that, legal will have it for 6 days, and then the commander will have it for 5 days. So unless it was for some unforeseen circumstances, most cases are done within 20 duty days. There can be extensions for whatever reason. If things can't be completed within that timeline, if there's scheduling conflicts, we can extend it out 5 days at a time for that. For civilians, the process is a bit different. So with military, if someone comes in with a complaint, they have that option, whether or not they want to resolve it informally or formally. They could go straight formal. Civilians don't have that option. Civilians have to go informally first. ADR is huge when it comes to the civilian process. And another difference with that is the timeline. So civilians have 45 calendar days to come into the EO office with their allegations. Military members have 60 duty days to report. If things can't be resolved in an informal process with civilians, then we have 30 days to do the limited fact finding and do our inquiry. If things can't be resolved within that time frame, or they're not satisfied with the results, then we would give them the notice of right to file formally. At that point, they would have 15 days to return that to us, and then we would hire an investigator from IRD to actually conduct the civilian investigation. We ourselves in the EO office don't conduct the investigations for civilian complaints just because of how lengthy it could be. Civilian complaints can take years sometimes, and we just don't have enough manpower to do that and handle civilian military complaints and all the other administrative actions that we have to do. So at that point, we would just be the liaison. We pretty much would get the investigator anything that they need as far as scheduling interviews or documentation, anything of that sort. So besides the complaint processes, we also have 2 tools that we use to help commanders gauge the climate in their units. We have the DOCS and we have the Out and About program. They pretty much do the same thing, but the Out and About program is face-to-face. So the DOCS is the Defense Equal Opportunity Climate Survey. It's a completely anonymous survey where individuals could answer the questions openly and honestly. It's a wide range of questions. It has to do with anything from morale to organizational effectiveness, teamwork, things of that sort. Unit members could take that survey, answer those questions openly and honestly without it being traced back to them. All of those, the answers and all the statistical data, that feedback goes back to the commanders. And the commanders are pretty much looking at that just so they know where they are as a unit as far as their strengths and weaknesses. So basically, they know what's going on in their unit, and they could take the actions necessary to help improve things in their unit. So that's the one tool. The Out and About program, like I said, is pretty similar, but it's face-to-face contact. So we'll go to a unit, we'll conduct informal interviews, and just check on you all, see how things are going, your quality of life, morale. Make sure we don't see anything inappropriate around, like posters of naked women or graffiti in the bathroom, anything like that. If you want to speak to us, one-on-one, that's fine. If you're comfortable speaking in front of others, we could take you all as groups as well, as long as everyone's comfortable with that. And we won't write down any identifying information, but if you say something pertinent that the commander needs to know that it's EO related, we will jot that down, give it to the commander, and it's the same thing. Well, that feedback is for the commanders, so it could help improve things in their units. So those are the 2 tools that we use to help gauge the climate in units. We also are advisors for the Diversity and Inclusion Council, and we oversee the special observances and Diversity Day as well. We're located in Building 2179, the same building as the Airmen and Family Readiness Center, and our number is 634-2077. If you have any questions at a later time, that we don't get to today. So at this time, we'll just take some questions.
Oh, before we get started, I just want to add, during this session, we are not going to be answering or addressing concerns that may seem like a complaint. We will take hypotheticals within this session, but if there is a comment or question that looks very close to an EO complaint, we will not address it in this forum. We would ask that you contact our office via email, call us, or in person, and we will address your concern one-on-one.
All right, so we jotted down some questions that we got from the mentee earlier. So one of the questions is, do my concerns of unfair treatment due to my pregnancy fall under the EO office? So this is a common one that we've gotten over the years. Pregnancy does fall under sex discrimination, so we would address it as sex discrimination. Thank you. So yes, it would fall under the EO office if you are being discriminated against for your pregnancy.
I just wanted to add, so we do have a Menti link in the chat. If you want to submit anonymous questions, if you want to submit a question not anonymously, you can just type it in the chat as well, and we can answer it.
Can you report to EO anonymously? Yes, you can. However, there are certain circumstances to which you cannot. For example, if you come to our office and you identify an EO concern, you are not anonymous. We can see you, we can see your name tag. We are mandatory reporters, and so within the EO process, we have limited confidentiality. Now, what that means is if you come talk to us, that does not mean we tell everybody about your business, and that does not necessarily mean as soon as you talk to us, automatically an EO complaint will be initiated. But what that means is if you disclose to us a violation of policy law, some of the examples are sexual assault, fraud and abuse, or an EO complaint, we're mandatory reporters and we are going to address it as such. However, if you received anonymous complaint, whether it be via email, a note underneath our door, or somebody calls the DOD EO hotline and they're able to answer the who, what, when, where, and how, and it provides us as much information for us to draft an allegation, then we are going to look into those allegations. Again, I'm going to foot stomp the fact if you come to our office and you say, hey, Sergeant Maldonado, hey, EO team, I want to file a complaint anonymously, we cannot do that. We see you. You are no longer anonymous. Also, with that, if you call our EO office, we do have caller ID, so at times we can see who you are. We will speak to you, and we will, not that we're trying to hound you for information, but we will ask you identifying information, and your anonymity will be disclosed. Over to you.
What do I do if my leadership tells me not to report something to EO? But your leadership can't restrict you from making any protected contact with the outside agency as far as EO or IG. So if that does happen, go to the IG. It's located in building 1086 now.
All right, how long after an incident happens can I report it to EO? So the answer differs based on which category or which resolution you want. If you want to file an informal EO complaint, there are no time limits to come to our office and report anything that's happened. If you would like to file a formal EO complaint, that time limit is 60 days. So after you find out you've been discriminated against, you have 60 days to come to the EO office and file that complaint. For civilian members, like we said, we have to file a pre-complaint first. But if you want to come in and file that complaint, it has to be within 45 days of the alleged event happening. So I know there's a lot of timelines I'm throwing at you, but just keep in mind, if you want to file a complaint with your chain of command, there's no time limit. Formal complaint, 60 days. Civilians, 45 days.
What if you see inappropriate language or post on social media coming from active duty members? Wow, this is a very common one, and this one's a complex question in a sense that it is situational based. What I will say is that keep in mind, you active duty members, we are on duty 24/7. When we have social media instances, meaning when we have members who are active duty and they post inappropriate language, derogatory terms, you know, it could even be sexual in nature, and it goes viral, we consider that an equal opportunity treatment incident. It's still a complaint. In addition, those words, they have consequences. A member can definitely take screenshots, you know, provide supporting documentations, and it can equal an equal opportunity complaint. Be mindful of what you say and do. Of course, you always have your right to post what you post, but again, you are on duty 24/7. And so we have here at Bill received concerns that have been brought to our attention with regard to postings on social media, private group chats, whether it be within WhatsApp, Facebook messages, to include personal text. Again, it's written. The members can see it. They can be offended by it. So my number one message here is be mindful of your activities on social media, because again, it can spill over into your duty, and it can equal an equal opportunity complaint or an equal opportunity treatment incident.
If my airman comes to me with concerns of sexual harassment, but it involves touching, I bring this concern to EO or SAPR. I would say you could come to either one, because you're going to make 2 trips if you come and see me regardless. Anything that's sexual in nature, if you come to the office, as soon as you say anything that has to do with sex, I'm going to take you over to the SAPR office, and I'll let them determine whether or not it's sexual assault or physical sexual harassment. Like I mentioned earlier, sexual harassment could be verbal, nonverbal, or physical. So there's a very thin line between physical sexual harassment and sexual assault. The easiest way that it was explained to me is if you look at a body that's covered in a bikini, and anything that the bikini is covered with, if you touch that, it's no longer physical sexual harassment, it's sexual assault at that point. But like I said, if you come to the office with anything sexual, we'll take it over to the SAPR and let them determine whether or not it's sexual harassment or sexual assault. If it's sexual harassment, then they'll bring you back over to us, and then we can press from there with the Commander Director Investigator.
All right, my next question is pretty easy. This was already answered. Where is the EO office located? Again, we're the Airman and Family Readiness Center. Do we have more questions on Menti maybe that we haven't answered yet?
Yep, I do. And please do your questions and Menti if you have any. Do you offer counseling services without making a complaint?
So this is kind of answered by Sergeant Maldonado. So counseling services, it depends on what you're talking about by counseling services. He covered the complaint side, but we do offer facilitations and mediation. So we can host those mediations, those facilitations, just have a conversation between 2 coworkers. We are licensed mediators, and doesn't have to do with an EO complaint. All it will ask is for you to fill out a mediation form. We'll send it to the ADR program manager, and then he will assign one of us to be a mediator or facilitator for that situation.
I have a question. Do you find out the results after an EO complaint is made? The answer is yes. You will get the results of whether or not your complaint has been substantiated or unsubstantiated. What you do not find out is what type of punishment has taken place, if any. That is something that we do not inform you of. We will say a very generic statement that your issue was addressed formally by leadership. You will not get any more information than that. And this is due to Privacy Act reasons. but you will be informed whether or not your allegations are substantiated or unsubstantiated. And this is for military members. Civilians, Sergeant Thomas talked about the EO complaint process. Our office does not make determination on civilian EO complaints. The only people that can make determination on civilian EO complaints is a judge. Is there another question?
All right, can you go directly to EO to file a complaint?
Yes, you can come directly to EO to file a complaint, but like I said earlier, we like to resolve everything at the lowest level possible. So I would encourage individuals to take those steps, ask those questions, because sometimes people might say something or do something that's offensive, and they might not even know that they're doing it. In the military, we're all from different places. I don't want to pick on anybody from Texas, but sometimes people from Texas they use a lot of terms of endearment, sugar honey baby, things like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that person is sexually harassing you, but if you're uncomfortable with that, let that person know, I'm not really comfortable with you calling me that, and the behavior should stop. So if it doesn't stop, then we have a problem. So at that point, if you want to come straight into the EO office, you can do that, but I would encourage using the chain of command first.
All right. Does EO perform trend analysis in order to adjust programs?
So we do. We brief the wing commander twice a year on trends that are going on. We also look at the DEOCs for each squadron, and then we roll up all the DEOCs in a year to see if there's any trends across the base in those DEOCs. And that's how we get our trend analysis, and that's how we can adjust our briefings. Like recently, we've been hitting a lot more on sexual harassment because it's been on the rise. So we definitely adjust our programs in accordance with that.
I have one more question. Can you report for someone else? So this question is a little bit complex in the sense that typically we do not take third-party complaints. However, if the member who comes forward was offended by an incident or comments personally, then we will address those concerns as such. But what you cannot do is say, if you came to the EO office and say, I would like to file a complaint on behalf of Sergeant Hopwood because Sergeant Hopwood was offended by the action, or Sergeant Hopwood was not treated in accordance, was not treated with dignity and respect, we would not be able to take that concern. Now, this is the other caveat. Depending on the situation that has taken place, we may call the command and let them know we were made aware of this incident. We need to further look into this or address this concern. But you cannot file a complaint on behalf of somebody else. We do not take third-party complaints. We'll take complaints if you personally were offended by the action that has taken place.
Another question?
Does the EO office talk to other offices?
Yes. I'm not sure what they call it here because I'm new.
R2.
R2, okay. I'm coming from Coonsign, so we have the CART team, and that would involve all of the agencies. We would have SAPR there. We would have EO, IG, the chapel, and everybody pretty much, we would pretty much compare statistics and try to come up with resolutions and things that we could do to help improve things throughout the base. Everyone would talk about any type of trends that they have going on, and we would brainstorm and see what we could do or what organizations were available to lead certain events and help alleviate some issues.
And now we have the new Diversity Inclusion Council, and we will be working a lot with them. I definitely encourage you all to join. There's going to be awesome, exciting things coming out of the council, and we look forward to all the future activities.
All right. Has the office here seen an increase or decrease in complaints in the last year?
So the EO office here has definitely seen an increase within the last year. Previously, we were trending on sexual harassment being our huge increase, and now with all the stuff going on with race relations, we are seeing an increase in race-related complaints. So that's just some information for you guys all to be aware of what's going on here on base.
When and why did the Air Force create EO?
That is a great question. Because there was a need. No, actually, the Equal Opportunity Office and Program, we actually were in response to a race riot that took place down the street at Travis Air Force Base. And this was around in the late 60s, early 70s time frame. And because of this, in response to this concerns, and there was other race-related issues that were taking place across the DoD sprung into action and specifically for the Air Force stood up social actions. Over the years, we have transformed in how we address concerns, our roles and responsibilities, and really with the law changes, the Title VII basis. Before, for those of you who have been in the Air Force for many, many years, we were split. We had an MEO side and military side and a civilian side. And I think around 2008-ish, we merged, and now we're just EO. As mentioned at the intro of this, we do more than just take complaints, although that is a function of our job. But we assess the human climate relations of organizations. We're DoD certified mediators. We host team building sessions. We hold a lot of different hats within the EO community. Bottom line up front, we're here to assist. If we cannot assist you or it does not fall in our lane as it pertains to the protected categories, then we will refer you to agencies that can help you, whether it be SARC, IG. We're in the Family Readiness Center. They have a lot of tools that can help our members out, walk them over across the hall, the chaplain. It just all depends. But bottom line, we're here to assist.
All right. When should you go to EO versus the IG?
That all comes down to the purview as discussed. So you would come to the EO office if it was anything that had to do with race, color, religion, national origin, sex, sexual harassment, sexual orientation, hazing, or bullying. The IG actually had hazing and bullying before, but it now falls under the EO purview. So if it's anything that has to do with fraud, waste, or abuse, then you would go to the IG, or issues with your leadership that didn't fall under any of the categories I just spoke about.
Okay, so somebody writes in the chat, it was the protest that happened May 21st to 25th in 1971. Is that referring to the creation of the EO? Thanks, MC. Okay, got a couple more questions. What is something that you would want to tell someone considering cross-training to EO?
So equal opportunity, that's a good question for me. I just retrained 3 years ago, coming from aircraft maintenance. I did aircraft maintenance for 6 years. Decided I wanted to see another side of the Air Force. Originally, I thought it was going to be a pretty easy, pretty laid-back career field. I quickly learned that, no, it's go, go, go. We have people walking our door. Aircraft maintenance, you have an issue, you fix it, you're done. Ours, you get complaints. You have that complaint for a month, 2 months, and if it's a civilian complaint, you'll have it for the whole time you're here at this base. So it's quite a heavy job. You're dealing with a lot of rank. You're briefing commanders, you're briefing chiefs. You're talking to a lot of high-ups on the base. It gets a little nerve-wracking, to be honest, to begin with, but just knowing that you have the tools in your bag, you have that skill set that's been given to you by the Air Force. It's a pretty good feeling. It's a pretty good career field. It's an awesome feeling when you help somebody resolve a complaint. But like every other career field, it's going to have its ups and its downs. So if you feel like you're interested in cross-training, please feel free to stop by the office. There is a 15-day shadowing period before you can be approved into the career field. So we'll have all those conversations, and we'll have you sit side by side with us while we're working complaints. So please feel free to stop by, give us a call, or send us an email.
You have to be an NCO or a Staff Sergeant Select and above to cross-train into EO. So we are one of the few career fields that you cross-train into. We don't have airmen that just come into EO.
All right, last one, does EO deploy?
Yes, we deploy. And we deploy quite often. So we try not to deploy our staff sergeants. We try to deploy tech sergeant and above. However, it really just depends on the need. So when I was a staff sergeant, I deployed as EO. I went to IUD and I did EO while I was out there. We just changed over bands on how we deploy. So we're listed in the Y band, and so that we try to rack and stack based on experience and who has deployed previously, because as mentioned, we do deploy a lot. And it's a really awesome experience. So if you were considering a cross-training in the deployed location, you see unique situations that you would not necessarily see while at base level. So
I have a question on that too. Is the deployed climate a lot different? Would you say that there's more complaints or more EO issues in the deployed environment?
That is a great question. So we have bases, and it depends base by base. So when we're at joint basing, the depot bases such as like Tinker Hill, those are high tempo bases, and we have larger staffs due to the demand with concerns and trying to handle things at the lowest level. In the deployed location, I would say they compare to what you would see at a smaller base such as this. However, the situations or concerns that are brought to your attention are definitely unique in comparison to what you would see stateside. Yeah, so it's comparable.
All right, so I don't have any other questions in the Menti right now. Does anybody want to chime in with any questions? You can just talk if you want to, or throw it in the chat or the Menti.
I know you have questions, everyone. We're here.
This is your time.
Enter it.
All right, we got a question in the chat. How does someone schedule facilitator training? Great question.
So facilitator training, to become a licensed mediator, you have to go to a DoD school and become a licensed mediator, and that would be getting a hold of the EO office and the ADR program manager. Facilitator training in the base sense, we have been training facilitators to hold difficult conversations, within our squadrons. That's a training that we can give one-on-one. We can give it in group sessions if you want your area to be facilitators for those conversations, or if you yourself are looking to become a facilitator. Just contact the EO office, and we have that training. We can set it up either that day or the next day usually.
All right, and how long is that?
About an hour.
Okay. All right, any other questions? I'm going to refresh on the Menti. All right, everyone, if there's no other questions, we're going to conclude this telePD. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I want to say thank you to the EO office for coming out here and giving us your time and answering all of our questions. Definitely tune in next week, Friday, same time, same place. We're going to have Chief Master Sergeant Retired Johnson and Master Sergeant Lakeisha Crawley doing a telePD on double victory. So until then, see you next time.